3. The Age of Machines. The early man used stones to make many kinds of weapons and tools. First, he used crude stones. Later, they polished and sharpened. Thousands of years later, he slowly began to use copper and bronze. Iron. Finally, iron was discovered. Iron, being stronger than copper, was used to make strong weapons and tools. Axe, plow, sword, and many other tools and weapons were made of iron. He even used the iron axe with which he cleared the forest and brought land for cultivation. Man started using these iron plows to till his soil and produced grains. He even used the utensils made of iron. With the discovery of iron, different kinds of occupations like farmer, blacksmith, carpenter, hunter, and potter were developed. Then there began some great changes in the early man's life. Yet he was not satisfied, and still he continued his quest, which is an unending process. Steam engine. Industrial Revolution. The early man had made many important discoveries like fire and wheel. The invention of steam engine also formed the greatest turning point in man's life. The coal mines in England were filled with water in rainy season. So, until the water was pumped out, it was not possible to mine the coal. Now came the need of steam engine. James Watt succeeded finally in the invention of steam engine in 1769. 50 years later, Stephenson invented the railway engine. A new era of life began with these inventions. The invention of the steam engine led to the invention of bigger machines, which in turn led to the establishment of factories. Things were made by hand earlier, but now machines are used to increase the production and speed. With this, production of goods began at a larger scale. The process of producing goods with the help of machines on a mass scale is called as Industrial Revolution. This Industrial Revolution began to produce large quantities of goods in a short time and sell them at a cheaper price, which is called as mass production. It increased the profit of the producers. As a result of this revolution, people began to migrate to towns in search of jobs. The places where factories were set up developed into big towns. The sources of energy. We invented big machines to satisfy our needs. These big machines need food called energy to work and produce electricity. There are many sources of energy. Coal and oil are the important sources, which are called as conventional sources of energy. The remaining sources are called as alternative or non-conventional sources of energy. Coal. The first and foremost fuel used by man for running the machines is coal. It is burnt to produce energy. It is the conventional source of energy. At first, man found the deposits of coal under the earth's surface. It was dug and started using coal, and the deposits became deeper and deeper. When the deposits were getting depleted, man's quest for other sources of energy began. In that process, mineral oil was discovered. Oil. The other important source of energy is mineral oil. The first oil well was discovered in 1857 in America. The oil is obtained in crude form and is drawn from the earth by drilling and is refined. From the refined oil, we get kerosene, petrol, gasoline, spirit, etc. Later, a German scientist by name Daimler invented motor car which moved on petrol. Later, he was followed by another German engineer, Rudolf Diesel, who invented a machine which worked on other type of oil. This oil was named after the great scientist who invented it. But diesel is cheaper than petrol. Many vehicles run with diesel as their main source of energy. Slowly, these oils are getting exhausted as the use of oil has been enormously increased. So, the search is on for other sources of energy. Electricity. The other form of energy is electricity, which is produced from oil, coal, gas and water. Dams are built across the rivers to generate electricity. The electricity that is generated from water is called hydropower, and the electricity that is generated from coal is called thermal power. The recent development is to generate electricity from nuclear power plants, which is called as nuclear power. Days before the steam engine was invented, a man made a toy called Leyden jar in Netherlands. It had two wires, out of which one was placed in the jar and the other outside the jar. When the two wires were joined, there were sparks, and when the wires were touched, it produced mild shocks. When a girl or a boy touched it, they got a shock and jumped and got panic, causing amusement to the people. These jars were the basics for the invention of electricity. Then Benjamin Franklin of America conducted several experiments with a kite and a piece of metal attached to it, thereby proving that the lightning in the sky is a kind of electricity. Thus, the invention of electricity brought a revolution in the lives of the people. Nowadays, it has become very common that we cannot think of life without electricity. It is a great power used to get many of our things done. The various appliances in our homes are the fruits given by electricity to us. All our TVs, ACs, washing machines, lights, fans, and several others work on electricity. In the modern times, even our railway engines run on electricity. Man has been considerably increasing his knowledge after the invention of electricity. He started to think about the several other ways by which electricity can be produced. As a result of it, Volta, the great Italian scientist, in 1792 invented the battery by which electricity could be produced at a small scale. In the modern times, we have generators and inverters to be used during the failure of power. These generators work on diesel and petrol, whereas an inverter works on a battery. Non-conventional sources of energy. As the conventional sources of energy, that is coal and oil, are getting exhausted, there arise the need for new or alternative sources of energy. As a result of it, biogas, wind power, water power, and solar power, which are the other sources of energy, were invented. Biogas or gobar gas is produced from the waste like cow dung, which was used for lighting, cooking, pumping of water, and various other things done by electricity are carried on. Natural sources, sun rays, wind, water are called as the natural sources of energy. These natural sources also generate power. Windmills are also used to produce energy from wind. Nowadays, energy is also produced from sun rays, which is called as solar energy. The hydel power is generated from water, which is natural source. All these natural sources of energy do not exhaust like oil and coal. They can be used many times. They are renewable. They are pure and safe and do not cause any harm or pollution like other sources of energy. Let's revise the important points. 1. Early man made weapons of stones. Later, he came to know about copper, bronze, and iron and used them. 2. The invention of steam engine by James Watt in 1769 was a turning point in man's life. 3. The result of the Industrial Revolution was that larger quantities of goods were produced in a shorter time and sold cheaply. 4. Coal and oil are called as conventional sources of energy. The others or remaining sources of energy are called as non-conventional or alternative sources of energy. 5. Energy can be produced with water, sun rays, and wind. These are called as the natural sources of energy. Do these. 1. Answer the following questions. Conceptual understanding. 1. How was iron used by the early man? Answer. Iron, being stronger than copper, was used to make strong weapons and tools. Axe, plough, sword, and many other tools and weapons were made of iron. The early man even used the iron axe with which he cleared the forests and brought land for cultivation. Man started using these iron plows to till his soil. He even used the utensils made of iron. 2. What is Industrial Revolution? What happened as a result of it? Answer. The process of producing goods with the help of machines on a mass scale is called as Industrial Revolution. As a result of this revolution, people began to migrate to towns in search of jobs. The places where factories were set up developed into big towns. 3. How many sources of energy are there? Name them. Answer. There are two types of sources of energy. They are 1. Conventional sources of energy. to alternative or non-conventional sources of energy. 4. What are natural sources of energy? Give examples. Answer: sun rays, wind, water are called as the natural sources of energy. Example: windmills are used to produce energy from wind. Solar energy is produced from sun rays. The hydropower is generated from water. 2. Fill in the blanks. Conceptual understanding. 3. State whether the statements are true or false. Conceptual understanding. You have won! Four. Project work. Ask the students to collect the pictures of the things associated with the sources of energy and paste them in their project book.